things like Confucius and some of those Eastern philosophers and stuff like that. There's so much that is passed down into their own and then so much of the history we have is because so long we're on that train, we're fantastic enough that we.
Salud.
All right, welcome to another episode of the Joe and Doug Show. First and foremost,
Yes, sir.
How out of touch? I understand all politicians are pretty much out of touch. Regardless of party, they're pretty well out of touch. There's a handful that aren't, but the vast majority, 98%, are just in their own little world. But did you, like, gas has gotten so expensive. I know that doesn't affect you, but
some days it does.
Some days it does, but gas is crazy expensive. People are complaining about it. And the administration was asked about, can you help us with gas prices? Can you open up a pipeline? There's got to be some sort of solutions. And Pete Buttigieg, who is the transportation secretary or something like that, he said, well, the solution is for people to get electric cars. And it's like, the extra $100 I don't have to pay at the pump a month does not equal me paying another $30,000 or $40,000 for an electric car. Like it was so out of touch. Like, well, of course, just go buy yourself a Chevy Volt or a Tesla or whatever. And it's like, the reason I drive a gas car is because I don't have the 60 or 70 grand to buy a Tesla. And even if I had a 60 or 70 grand, I don't want to have to buy an electric car. Maybe I'd want to at some point, but it was just such a like, well, of course, just go buy an electric car. It's like, yeah, my $100 problem now becomes a $40,000 problem. And it was just, I was listening to the press conference on the way here, and I was like, that is so out of touch.
You need to check out of talk radio for a little bit, because I watch it boil your blood a little bit, and it stays with you, and you carry it around.
It's fun. So because Ben Shapiro's Jewish, and he takes the Sabbath off, I get a reprieve Saturday and Sunday, but then I pick it back up Monday, Tuesday, and it's like he's got to make up for the last.
Well,
few days.
Let's solve this problem. Let's solve the whole thing, because obviously politicians are inept and they're not capable.
They don't want to solve anything
of doing it. So, my disagreement with the whole thing is that everybody approaches it like it's an all or nothing deal, right? And so, like, we did not do ourselves any favors by outsourcing our production to other countries, especially countries that don't like us. I mean, what do you think is going to happen
exactly
if you have somebody who will leverage you the first chance they get to take advantage of it? I mean,
well, and now they're negotiating with Venezuela for oil. Venezuela,
our friends in Venezuela, you mean?
Rather than opening a pipeline here, rather than exhausting all sorts of resources that we have available to us and our allies, you're going to talk to Venezuela and Iran.
All right, let's just, okay, so here's the deal. Yeah. We do not want to do domestic development. So let's just say, if we decided that we just had enough stuff here, we're just going to go and develop oil, natural gas in this, then you don't have to deal with any external sources. But at the same time, you can also invest in renewables. I mean, I'm a big fan of renewables, like off the charts, a fan of.
I just think all markets need to be open. Stop picking a winner.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to do this because we have this agenda. And right now it's not feasible for someone like Elon Musk. I think he tweeted out like 2 days ago, like, it pains me to say this, and I'm the electric car guy, but we need to produce more oil, open the pipeline, or whatever he tweeted. And because he understands it's right now, you can't do this. We're going to be $7, $8, $9 a gallon. And I hate to say it. A lot of people would hate for me to say this. I'm enjoying saying it, but Trump told you so.
There you go.
He did. Boom. He said if Biden gets in office, gas is going to go up $6, $7, $8, $9. He said it in Trump fashion that people don't like, but he wasn't wrong.
Right.
And
so here's what I think's really going on now. Okay. So you know how, like, you get creative in the NFL draft where you get a player, but then you trade away different picks in different years, and you have these integrations of the draft, right? So I think what's happening is a lot of our dependency are integrated in other foreign policies. So, in order to, like, negotiate and say, hey, I will buy oil and gas from you if you do this thing. And I think we don't know a lot about those deals that happen behind the scenes. And it's not like we can decouple and take that industry away from someone without losing a leverage in a different department. Like, maybe we're saying, okay, we'll buy gas from you if you don't, invade your neighbors, kind of a thing. But I think that we're stuck in a lot of hard places.
I'm not saying any diplomatic solutions are easy. I totally understand that there's far more at play than gasoline. However, when you're getting so many things wrong on a political front, from inflation to foreign policy to everything else, it's just a mess in 14 months. And I'm not saying Trump did everything right. By no means am I saying that. But it's amazing what, what the last 14 months has brought us. And just on the way in, I was consuming some talk radio, so I had to get that out before we actually talk
I'm glad you got
about
it
hope and happiness and life for us.
Well,
and
this will go into like a theme of our regular show.
Yeah.
Okay, so when the shit hits the fan like it
Yeah.
is right now, everybody's motivated to make changes for the better. When shit isn't hitting the fan, we get apathetic and we don't really pay attention. So now is not the time to like invent the stuff, right? But now we're most willing to do it. So how do you then not wait till you get burglarized to install the alarm system?
That's so tough. Most people are going to wait for the pain. We're too comfortable. We like our comfort. We like our stuff. I think there's a quote. I was watching Batman, the one with Bane, the other night. And Bane, the first encounter he has with Batman, I'm hunting for it because I posted it, but I don't know how long ago I posted it. I don't remember when I watched it. Here it is. So Batman and Bane get into this encounter with each other. And Batman in that movie has been on the sidelines. He was, injured. He's got his cane walking around, but he gets himself back into quote unquote fighting shape, and he decides he's going to go after Bane. But Bane kicks his booty in the first encounter, and he puts him down in that pit. You remember that movie? Oh man, that's the best Batman too.
Sorry.
But anyway, so Bane's beating the snot out of Batman the first encounter they have, and he says this line to him. He says, "Peace has cost you your strength, victory has defeated you." And I love that line because for so many people, we've been at peace for so long that we're just comfortable with it. Like, war has not come to our shores. We've sent our troops places. We've sent them to Afghanistan and Iraq, and they fought valiantly and they've defended, people. But in terms of like a Pearl Harbor, we haven't had that in a long time. 9/11 obviously was terrorism, and it was a little different than Pearl Harbor, but same kind of concept. But we're getting comfortable in this kind of arena, and people are kind of tired of the fight, if that makes sense. A lot of people wanted us to pull out of Afghanistan. A lot of people wanted us out of Iraq. They thought, that was a big theme. Remember with George W. Bush, who went in there, they were against the war. That was a big theme. But for a lot of people, it's the fact that, peace has taken our strength. Like, we're just comfortable being comfortable, and we just don't want to be bothered. And if it's not going to affect my family, whatever. And now you're starting to get the effects on your family in the gas tank, in inflation, in the schools. Parents are having a bear of a time with some of this curriculum stuff. And I've stopped calling them public schools, and the government run schools. They're having a very difficult challenge with some of this stuff. And it's not in every school, and it's not every, it's every grade level, but you have these things that are confronting our world right now, and everybody's just very comfortable. They're very much, well, it's not really bothering me. There's war going on in Ukraine, and people that are affected by that have family there. And some people, I'll throw some couple bucks at it or whatever, they'll give to a GoFundMe or, some organization they support. But we really have lost that instinct in us, that deep fight. And that only comes when you get put under pressure. It's only going to return when you get stuck.
Yeah. So you got two elements of it. You've got the you see that something needs done, but you don't have the will of the support of the public. And so you need to almost invent something that inspires someone to want to do something, or it could be vice versa. Now you can't do it, right? But now you all of a sudden have the will of the public.
I was in high school when 9/11 happened, and I can remember the patriotism. You remember the unity that happened right after that. So many of my friends signed up to join the military and stuff because we were right at that. I think I was 16, 17, 18. We're right in that spot where, that was a big deal. They wanted to sign up. They wanted to go and send a message to the people that knocked down those buildings and all that. We had a taste of it for a little bit, but it only took, I don't know, 2 years maybe, and everybody was tired of it already. I mean, the next campaign was, we've done too much, we've overreached, should have never went to war. I mean, that was the whole anti George W. Bush campaign, was all against the war. It was John Kerry Frankenstein. I mean, personality of the wall over there. I mean, and he didn't win, but that was the message that went out, and then it continued, and obviously with President Obama, and but that instinct to fight and to take it into more of the context of our show and out of the kind of political arena. I think for a lot of people, you start sometimes success is the thing that lulls you to sleep. Like you have some success in your marriage, you have some success in your business, you have some success in life, and you kind of get comfortable. And then things change, right? And then everybody's trying to hold on to the past.
Well, you see when somebody decides that they're going to start exercising, they have some health scare. They want to fix the relationship when they have some kind of pressure put on their relationship. It's never like, it's kind of quiet around here. Let me see where I need some help, right?
No, it's 100%. I was watching a clip. Somebody sent me a clip of a comedian, and he was kind of, how they pull the audience in the last questions, and he asked some guy what he did for a living, and the guy said, I do paper printing sales. I do printer sales. And he's like, and the comedian was like, well, that's a business to be going into, and was like poking fun at him. The guy got real defensive, and he goes, whoa. He's like, I didn't even say anything yet, but then he torched the guy once the guy got defensive, and it was really funny. But the whole point in that is so many of us, we've had success, and I can't tell you how many people you see at 40, 50, 60 years old. They're like, well, they'll say things like, well, like I'm a dinosaur. I learned how to do this way. And they're just trying to hold on to something that's not there anymore, whether it's a technology, whether it's some sort of success they've had in business. But the same thing's true even in like a marriage, take it outside the context of business. If you don't learn to continue to grow in your marriage and fight for your marriage, there are different seasons. Like the season Sam and I are getting ready to head into, Abraham's going to go to school full time. Like my wife is about to be free of like the toddler range. Like all of our kids are potty trained, and we're in the next season here where they can kind of take care of themselves. Like Charlotte comes home and does her homework, and then she's like, here, check this. And I'm like, wow, everything's right. The boys are constantly playing with one another. They're not like, Dad, can you play this game with me? They do from time to time, but they're much more self-sufficient. And so we're in this new season where we're like, a lot of extra time on our hands, like with each other, like, and the kids aren't bothering us, or we can, whatever it is. And we're going to go into the next season. But so many parents hit different phases in life, and they've gotten comfortable with the old phase. And they have a crisis. They got comfortable with, well, we were the chauffeurs and running the kids all around during high school. And then all the kids go off to college, and they're sitting there going, I don't know how to be in this next season. And you will play for what is comfortable until you decide to step up and change. And I just feel like as a country in general, we're just far too comfortable. And this stuff hopefully will wake a sleeping giant, as people are saying. But for a lot of our listeners, you can wait until something wakes you up, or you can wake yourself up.
And this might not make anybody happy. I don't care. So we talk about the pendulum swings. We talk about this for a little while, where when things move and you have entropy and you have that force of those kind of changes that we're talking about. Just because something swings out of your benefit, it might absolutely swing into the benefit of someone else. So a guy that owns an electric car is loving what's happening right now. So, but if the masses are not on the receiving end of the beneficiary of that change, then it gets a little upsetting.
Well, and something like an electric vehicle, you almost have to hit a tipping point, to use Malcolm Gladwell's kind of book, where the world's going to accept that. Right now, I don't know what the percentages are for electric vehicles. I know they're higher than they were 10 years ago, but they're not at a place where you have mass market acceptance across the board, where you have more people with electric vehicles than with gas. We're not at that place. And until we get to that place, something like this, people are going to run for what's familiar. And I think that's true in every crisis. I see it in marriages all the time. People run for what's familiar.
Right.
When people struggle in business, they run to what's familiar. Well, that got us out of the last one. Let's just pump up production on that. Or let's, we did this sale last time and it saved our butts last Christmas. So let's try and do it again. And it doesn't always work. Churches for the longest time, they would do egg hunts. They would do big stuff at Christmas. And some of those things started to wane over time. Like we nixed the egg hunt at Bridge of Hope. And I had a couple people, this is several years ago, because we were spending thousands of dollars. We were spending hundreds of, volunteers, man hours, all that stuff. And then we were just one egg hunt that people would hit over a dozen egg hunts because every church was doing one, and they were all coming from other churches. Like I wasn't like they were already attended and committed at their church. Like that's great. I'm glad you came to a nice event, but I'm not doing the egg hunt for you. And if that's all I'm going to get is church people going to one of 6 egg hunts so their kids have all this candy and have a fun weekend, wasn't worth it. So we had to stop. And, when I did that, we've been doing the egg hunt for 25 years at that point. And a few people were like, well, that's how this family came to the church. And that's how this family came to the church. That was great 20 years ago, but we need to shift gears and we have to put this into something else. And it became quite a challenge. It was tough to sell. One or two families were like, adios. And we had to be okay with that, but you have to look at and evaluate. But when you do that sort of stuff, people always run for comfort and run for familiarity. And that's why change is one of those things. Yeah, you have to get buy-in. Yeah, you have to cast vision for it. Yeah, you have to, but you're going to change one way or the other is the point. Eventually, I believe electric vehicles are going to be mass market across. Everyone's going to own one.
Can I argue on behalf of Pete Buttigieg, by the way? I'm going to, here's the deal. Electric cars are not more expensive than regular cars. They're not more expensive. Okay. So when you do the comparison, when you buy a car that's ICE, right, you defer some of the cost and spread it over the long term of the ownership. When you buy an electric car, you front load and you end up paying for more of something that costs less over a period of time. So if you look at the timeline,
so you think they're comparable?
It is total parity, 100% parity. So on 3 ends. Okay.
Yeah, I'm totally curious.
Well, actually 4. I'm going to give you 4. So the first one is that you don't have maintenances. You don't have oil changes. You don't have brake pads. You don't have any of the normal stuff that you do every 3 or 4 months, right? You have 0 because it has regenerative braking. It uses the motor spins backwards and it slows you down. So you never really go through brake pads.
Okay.
That's number 1. And if you don't go through brake pads, then you don't also go through rotors at the same time.
Interesting.
Second thing is obviously no fuel, no actual gas to put in it. You plug it in and I am like saving about $300 a month on.
I saw a post recently. You posted how much you spend on electric
about $300 a month. So $3,000 a year in fuel savings beyond the 2. The third is the time that it takes. Like you do not have to go to the gas station. Like the time that you were sitting or, for the life of the car, you don't have to actually go to the gas station, all the other ancillary stuff you buy.
Or sit and wait for your car to be oil changed or
Yeah. And what was the last one? Well, I guess that's it. Those 3 then. So when you take all of the maintenances that you don't have to do with the brake pads and belts and all that kind of stuff, you don't have to do any of them.
Now, do you pay for any of the electronic upgrades and stuff?
No, it's all free.
It's all part of the cost. One of the things that I've heard from people is that during certain weathers, now I've heard this is not true with Tesla, but it's true with others like Chevy, that their batteries work less efficiently in colder weather or in
it does. It's like 7% less. So over the course
even with a Tesla, you're saying,
yeah, if you get 240 miles, you're going to lose 7% of range over the pass. So in our daily lives, I mean, it's about comparable. Nobody goes from full to empty in their daily lives anyway, and you get to basically recharge every night. So long trips that might come into it, but dailies doesn't really come into it. Yeah.
Interesting. All right. Well, I'll be interested after Shapiro goes off on Pete Buttigieg and electric cars.
But I mean, if you take a position, nobody's going to run out and buy a car because the conditions of fuel, because that's an unfair expectation to have.
That's what he was going off on.
Absolutely.
So, but so I heard a phrase, to switch gears here, that I want Joe to respond to. So we've talked about finances, investing, all that sort of stuff, and I don't necessarily want to go down the cryptocurrency and investment, real estate, any of that sort of stuff. But what I want to talk about is the word assets. Yes. And this is the phrase that I heard. And so I'll put it in this context. So the person said, not me, the person said, Dave Ramsey is a moron. That was a quote.
Okay.
And he teaches people how to be successfully poor, was the quote that was kind of made. And he said, because poor people make an income and have expenses, and they go to their job, they make their money, and then they spend it on houses, cars, and stuff that they want. Wealthy people make their income, they buy assets, and their assets pay for their expenses. Do you agree with those sentiments?
Was that a Kiyosaki quote, by the way? Because he's
actually, yes, they
really?
They quoted Kiyosaki in there, but it was like a comprehensive 5-minute clip on finances.
I agree with both of them. And really that finance is playing a you versus you game, and majority of people, they can't get themselves under control long enough to do anything. So the safe play, I figured Dave Ramsey's the safest player.
Well, they said at the end, he made that big statement up front because it pulled you into the video, because nobody says that. And at the end, he was like, listen, if you're going to be poor, do it Dave Ramsey's way, because you won't be poor and in debt.
Right.
It was kind of his point. And it makes sense. But do you ascribe to that second philosophy that I make an income, I invest in assets, whether that's buying a business, real estate, crypto, whatever, stock market, I put it in assets, and then those assets then turn around and pay for my lifestyle?
There's 1/3. So there you basically have an ejection seat on the third step there. Okay. So let's just say, I'll give you an example. So I buy a thing, so my definition of an asset is anything that you can use to put money going into your pocket. So if I bought a car, it's a liability if it costs me money. If it takes money out, right? I can convert my car into an asset if I can find a way to rent it out and put money back in. And so if I bought the car specifically to create an asset, there's got to be an ejection seat. So it can't be out of the terms that if I didn't want to do the whole asset thing anymore, I could sell it, and I wouldn't have to take all that money that I put in my pocket, go back out to make sure that I don't have it anymore. And a lot of people will buy an asset, but it comes with a balloon liability that when they, they're putting money in their pocket, but when they go to sell it, they got 20% worth of selling fees on it, and they end up not making any money. So it was a mirage.
Interesting. It's one of those things that I've been, since the beginning of this podcast, trying to switch some of the things with how I think. And my wife and I've had a discussion recently about assets, and she's like, did we make any money? And I was like, well, no, we haven't lost any money. She's like, well, were we down? And I was like, well, right now the market's down. So yes, we're down on some of our purchases, but as long as I don't sell, we haven't lost any money. And she's like, I don't understand that. And we were having this conversation back and forth. I'm like, because the market will correct, and the market we may lose money, but at the end of the day.
Well, hold on. Let me again shift your thinking a little bit, because here's what you would have to do. Think of it as if you had a house, and what your house is going to have selling fees. You're going to have to pay 10% on your house. So that if your house doesn't improve on the day that you bought it, it's down, because you have 10% that comes off the top right off of the get-go. So think about your investment as you just bought the house, and the selling fees are going to take a chunk out of it. What money would you have to put into it equal to zero? That's the balloon liability for a period of time. So when you frame it like that, you're not really down, right? When everything you buy comes with a balloon liability right off the get-go. And it takes some sort of like time or strategy to be able to overcome the balloon liability at a certain point. That's where your ripcord comes in, or your ejection seat.
So what are Joe's favorite assets? I know we've talked a bit about crypto and the stock market, but obviously you invest in human capital quite a bit.
Yes, for sure.
I know you recently invested in an artist at the church, which is really exciting. How do you, so those investments for you, how do they pay you back? And so this is what I'm trying to understand. So, all right. So if I bought a property, obviously I could rent it out. If I bought a car, an extra car, and wanted to use it as a rental car, I could rent it out through one of those, subleasing kind of websites or whatever. But so you put money into a business, you put $10,000 to start whatever.
Right.
You're obviously not going to take that money back out a week later. That money's going to sit in there for a little bit. And when does it start paying you back? How does that work in that sense?
So the first set of businesses that I got into, I had to have a majority interest, in 100% in this case, to create enough production to give that payback in advance. So if you do not have 100% of production, then you're not going to be able to pay for that thing. So when you buy a stock, an equity, a bond, a business, or a job, even, those are 100% ownership, where it gives you money coming in. 100% comes to you. Now, when you get to a point, you create as many of those production grind things as you possibly can until you don't need to draw any money. And so let's just say if you started when you were a 15-year-old, you'd only need $1,000 a month, and you'd be plenty, right? And so your draw would be really low. If you wait longer, then you create a bunch of liabilities, and your draw keeps getting longer and longer and longer. Right. So I got to a point where my production exceeded what my needs were. And the minute that happens, the second thing that I do is I use whatever cash that I have to buy time. Like I buy some time back so then I could do something else.
So you get a person to come cut your grass.
Exactly.
Something like that.
So then I'll take a couple hours and I'll use my money to buy some time. And then the next thing is I don't invest for money. I don't need money. And I don't invest for time. I don't need any time, right? I squared up that one, squared up that one. Now it's opportunity. The third one that you start purchasing is things that you wouldn't have access to through production, things you wouldn't have access to just because you have time. Now you have to lengthen your sphere of influence by getting into markets that you aren't even looking at you because you don't have expertise in there. You don't have interest in there. You have help and you're aiding in someone else's success. So you, through proxy, get to be in opportunities that you don't deserve to be in.
It's interesting with the context we started with, the crazy world we're in, inflation and all this sort of stuff. A lot of people are looking for side hustles, or looking for, everybody talks about, well, the job market's so big right now, but everybody wants to be their own boss, especially this next generation. They want to start a business. Entrepreneurship is kind of cool. How do you navigate in this environment? What sort of opportunities are you looking to invest in? You mentioned the word opportunity.
Well, there's an ebb and flow of it. So whatever in the marketplace has a vulnerability or a vacuum or whatever, that's what I go and fill first. So if right now, if we're talking like energy and we're talking labor, those are rough markets to even make any success in, because they're getting just pummeled everywhere. You have on the political scene, I mean, we're hitting the labor market pretty hard. That's, this should be another show topic sometime in the future, that if the administration goes too hardcore over labor and unionizations and increasing the cost of labor, at the same time you have high inflation and you have high energy costs, that is just a recipe for really bad things happening.
So like, you just invested in a local artist.
Yes.
I would look at that and go, all right, is there money there? Like, is Joe doing this because he really appreciates the passion? Because I know sometimes you do, not that you're doing philanthropy. Obviously, it's a business venture, but sometimes you're like, you know what? This person's got a lot of passion. I believe in them. Even if I lose the money, like, this would be a worthwhile thing. And I know sometimes
it's never all or nothing. Like in everyone, like you go into it with a business mind that you're going to help somebody sort of explore that thing, and you're going to find something, because you really don't know going in. It's like a mystery box. You have no idea. You can have someone that
even if they have like a 15-page business plan, you still don't know.
I don't even look at it. I'm just like, I want to get my hands in there.
Well, you read the person too.
Exactly. But sometimes it's different. Sometimes it's raw talent, and it's other areas they just can't compete or can't put themselves together, or maybe they don't have much talent, but they're teachable and they're developable. So you're going to find a million different flavors that you can work with, and you just got to eyeball which one you got there.
If you were entering the job market today, let's talk to a 20-something, 18-year-old right out of high school. You're entering the job market. I
have this answer. I'm not even
what do you do? Where do you go?
AI, 100%. Okay. I started off in programming and coding and developing programming. This right now, where robotics and artificial intelligence are top. It's creme de la creme.
Okay. And do you have to have any experience, or you just show up and tell them, hey,
who's them? I don't even know who I'd go to go get a job at AI. I'd probably have to do it myself.
Okay.
Because there's the people who would hire me probably aren't, marketing themselves as looking for people. I'd have to make myself available to be found.
Yeah. Because I one of the things I hear as a pastor, I hear from people all the time, like, this job market, there's so much available, but everybody's so desperate. Is it the right fit? And, you have people that'll get a job and like, that was terrible, and they'll leave 3 weeks later. And, you have the quote unquote, the great resignation going on right now, where people are just leaving because, well, I can go online and I can drop ship and make what I was making at $30,000 at the pet store or at Giant Eagle or wherever. And so they're going to do some extra side sort of things. And these side things are becoming main things. I can think of a couple people at church that have like regular jobs, your standard sales job, whatever. And they started a side hustle, and their side hustle, they're now starting to make more than they're making at their regular job. And they're thinking about leaving.
People are going to have 5 and 6 jobs as going to be the standard in 10 years from now. No doubt.
Just because it creates that safety net. Well, you can lose one, or
right now we have the reason people have one job is because it's hard enough finding one good one. When you start integrating artificial intelligence and computer systems that can line up your talent with people who look for it, computers are going to say, hey, Joe knows how to do X, and they're going to line me up with 1,000 things to do. I have to worry about seeking it. It's going to come and find me. The marketplace is going to get so much more intelligent that way. Just think of people who know how to do stuff that they couldn't get hired to, even if they're the best in field, if they don't get discovered or they're not good at marketing or they're not good at having interviews.
Yeah. I always had no skills, but I was really good with people. So it always got me through the door.
There you go. There's your marketing right
sense.
there for sure.
Yeah, it's very interesting. One other phrase that I heard, since we're on the topic of markets and that sort of stuff, when you're selling somebody, whether in an interview or a product or whatever, I heard the word "because" is a magical word. It works in marketing campaigns, and there was a Harvard study that was done where essentially this lady went up to a line of people at the copier, and she would say, "Hey, could I please make some copies?" And there was a line of people waiting to make copies, and everybody was like, "No, get to the back of the line." And she changed her phrase, and all she would come up, same kind of line of people, she'd walk up and say, could I please, cut in front of the line here because I need to make some copies. 93% of the time when she used the word "because," people would let her cut in front.
Really?
And
I would murder her. I mean, because is not going to let you be in front of me.
You're the guy in the grocery line counting. You got 12, 13 items, other line, buddy.
Absolutely. 100%. Follow the rules. See, I also, you're allowed to do anything you want as long as it doesn't deprive someone else from what they want. And if you cut me in line, you're depriving me of something you didn't ask.
Well, I mean, she was being very nice. She said,
I don't care. She's still murdered. not letting her get away.
Well, the point that the video was making was that the word "because" has an effect in the human brain, that when people hear that, it's like, oh, they must have a good reason. And so marketers have used that, and they showed a whole slew of examples.
That's the worst part about businesses, when they get so good at psychology that they know manipulative language, how it appeals to people.
I was blown away by that.
Like, I want your charitable bones in your body to be exercised in a way that's actually charitable, not to get in the stupid front of the line. That's why they get murdered. I'm telling you.
Joe's going to hear the word "because," and he's like, that's it. Everybody up.
Yeah, because that's going to be in a YouTube video. We got 1 million people. Yeah. Go, I'd like to go in front of you because, and I'm like, stop it.
It's not going to work on Joe.
Not at all.
But apparently it works on about 90% of people. You're in the 10%.
But now that you know about it, don't let it work on you individuals out there.
That's actually the point of the video, don't let these marketing hacks work on you, which is super interesting. Well, I know the world we're in is a bit crazy right now, but still, the optimist in me, and I know the optimist in you, says the best is yet to come. And so I hope our listeners will dive in and really go try that business venture, try, something online, go get a new job, go expand, explore.
And I want to tell you, no more political talk radio fair. I want you to listen to ocean sounds like seagulls.
Yeah, I need that.
That's what you need for a good solid 2 weeks. Then, because you were on fire coming in.
I was.
Today. You were on number 10 on the volume meter, right?
Well, what's going on in the world is very sad, and I hope that we figure it out soon. So, thanks for listening. We'll see you Thursday.
Thank you for listening to this show on Youngstown Studio. If you like our programming, we invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow our Facebook page, or subscribe to your favorite podcast platform like iTunes or Spotify. This is original Youngstown content, and we would appreciate you sharing the videos